thanks for meeting me today. So can you tell us a bit about yourself and your background in martial arts?
Like most of us, did judo and karate as a kid. After the wild years of the late 20s, I did some kung fu in my early 20s, Sholifut. Then, after a year or so off, I was a motorbike dispatch rider, dropped a parcel to a place in Redfield, and I heard loads of shouting, and I looked over, there's people there in white suits, in what's now the headquarters of the TAGB. I heard the energy, I stuck my head in, it looked good, I started the next day, and that was end of 1984.
Okay. And you stay with that ever since?
Yeah, I've dipped and dabbled in a load of things since, but that's the meat and two veg of it, yeah.
So, for those who don't know, can you tell us a bit about what Taekwondo is? Well,
there's two sorts of Taekwondo. There is the stuff that people see in the Olympics, and I really, with all respect to those people, would not want me and mine to be identified with the Olympic Taekwondo. The Taekwondo I do is what's left behind after the Japanese were kicked out of Korea after the Second World War. There was a section of Korean society that had been to Japanese universities, they'd done karate there, they liked it, but their country had independence. They basically rebranded the karate as was and called it Taekwondo. They made some changes to it over the years, but my style of Taekwondo and the Japanese karates, particularly Shotokan, are very definitely first cousins, though not many people admit to that these days, but the history's clear.
Yeah, some people struggle hearing that, don't they?
Yeah.
To say their style is like other people's.
To me, that's the strength, because that means if that's my first cousin, the parent of it is Okinawan karate, and the grandparent of it is Southern Chinese styles, so you can look genetically up the family tree for loads of information and ideas, and you know.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Suits me.
So my next question was going to be, well, I suppose it makes sense. You're part of the TAGB, the Taekwondo Association,
Great Britain, yeah.
So what is this as an association, and how does it differ from the more well-known WTF and ITF styles?
Well, the ITF styles, we were formed after a breakaway from what was the UKTA, United Kingdom Taekwondo Association. This was way back in sort of 1982-ish. THB was formed in 1983. So we're effectively the same as the modern ITF styles. So the ITF styles have moved on and they've changed and revised the style and changed some ideas, which is healthy, because anything that's too cast in stone can never be that healthy. But we mostly use as our inspiration the creator of Taekwondo, the creator of our style of Taekwondo, Major General Choi Hong Hai, had written a series of manuals, Bibles we call them, and we keep the Bible that was current to when we broke away as our reference book. It's the 1983 manual. And so the difference between us and modern ITF is very little. There are a few major differences, but it's mostly the same.
So could a student drift between the two?
Difficult, because there's two big conceptual differences. We use an action to generate called hip twist, mostly, where we turn the hip hard, whereas the modern style does sine wave, and it's a kind of down, up, continue up and down movement, which people of my generation, the people that hip twist, look at that and we find it completely alien and we can't do it. I've never successfully converted a modern Taekwondo person to ours, to how I do it. I don't know of many or any of mine that have gone the other way either. It is kind of a stump. If you've done it for long enough, done one way or the other, it does become a bit of a stumbling block at times.
Right, yeah. Interesting.
But the patterns are effectively the same. And we can spar together, and we do. We compete. There's many tournaments and championships we compete in together.
Okay. Right, yeah. I was going to ask you about competition. So I had a look on your website before I came, and you said there's kind of 3 types of competition. Is that right? Or is there one competition and 3
events?
Yes.
Yes. I mean, there's even even more. The standard ones are in the colour belts. There's sparring, Up to blue belt, which is halfway to black belt, it's point stop sparring. Beyond that, it's continuous with 4 corner judges. There is then this pattern competition, solo performance, kata, sets, whatever you want to call it, which is judged. And at black belt and above, there's destruction, breaking things.
Right, yeah.
Then at some tournaments, I mean, very popular these days with all grades, there's tag team sparring, which is point stop. There's teams of 3, and every time a point is scored, a person can touch and they can come in and fight next. And that's quite exciting. It's a lot of fun. It's always a little bit lighter, but it's a lot of fun. Those are the main events. In a World Championships, you get more. You get things like musical patterns, which I personally think's a bit odd, but people like them, and you know, each their own. Yeah, indeed. Yeah.
So, being the TAGB, how can you compete at world level rather than just UK level? Because I assume, is there a TA?
There's
FR?
TI, Taekwondo International.
Okay.
Which there's a few, like many of the martial arts, there's a few bodies running around that call themselves the world body. We are one of the main world bodies. We're not the only one, but 2 weeks ago we held our World Championships, and we held it in the indoor arena. What was the indoor arena? I think it's now called the Barclaycard Arena. We had over 3,000 competitors, and they were coming from South America, Russia, USA, Australia, you know, from all 4 corners, South America, South Africa.
From different associations? Different
associations,
okay.
Yes.
Right,
Some of them members of TI, others just open. So that's an open tournament. It's just not open to any other associations in the UK other than TAGB.
I like that.
But we invite everyone else in. People say, why? And why don't we let other people in? And we say, don't care, don't want to.
Big enough to not need to. Right?
Yeah, there's 25,000 of us, and last time, just every time we've competed in, say, the big national open kickboxing thing, the Clash of the Titans, we win it every time, religiously. So, you know, who cares?
Yeah, makes sense. So, you're just watching your classes now. They seemed a little bit different from what I expect from a normal or a standard Taekwondo class. And the things you were talking about seem different from, say, the standard sport Taekwondo or just focused on competition Taekwondo. So I noticed you mentioned applied Taekwondo. So is that it? And can you explain a bit more about that?
This wasn't applied Taekwondo. Okay. This was just one of my general classes where instead of focusing on one area of our Taekwondo, which would be, say, formal syllabus work to passing next grading, or pure sport work, or say bring the holder down and do some destruction, or a night of self-defense. Tonight was a bit of this and a bit of that and a bit of that, a bit of moving around fast. If you've seen references online to my applied Taekwondo, that's my kind of own special thing. There's a lot of people out in the world that are doing what they'll call old style or alternative application karate. That is what I'm doing, is alternative application Taekwondo. It's taking the moves from our patterns and using them in a less than traditionally accepted method, but to address genuine common acts of violence.
Okay.
So, but I've gone beyond pattern applications. Now, applied Taekwondo for me is making sure that I have a realistic, practical self-defense system to address modern common acts of violence, and I pass that on to my students, as well as get them to win tournaments and get their next belt and stuff.
Yeah, sure. So you're basing a self-defense style or self-defense system from the patterns.
If I can, right? I used to rigidly I used to look for the patterns, because the Taekwondo patterns are based on karate patterns, and there's plenty of evidence that the way these techniques were used 100 years ago plus were used very differently to how they are now. The classic blocks, where we would stand and block punches with that, or if it's in a kung fu style down at a distance, people would accept that these are something completely different. These would be arm locks or breaks or throws or takedowns, because it's not realistic to block somebody like that standing in a big long stance. It only works if they attack you in a big stance with a big hand to the hip punch, which no one's ever done to me down the pub when we've had a few ciders. So I'm focusing more on self-defence and less on the patterns to look for a self-defence. I threw the patterns out the window. I took some advice of somebody far higher grade than me and better at this stuff than me, and they said, well, Russ, forget about the patterns, you're a senior grade martial artist. Think about the common acts of violence and you come up with antidotes to them. So that's what I did. I pursued all sorts of other ideas other than just practical martial arts. I looked at military and police defence systems, come up with ideas and stuff that fitted in. And what I kept stumbling over was traditional martial art. I kept stumbling over things that looked like and felt like our blocks, things that looked like and felt like our stances. People hanging on to people on the hip, sort of basing the hand off on the hip and doing something out like that. And it didn't half look like just a classic technique with a hand on the hip. So I kind of went full circle and went, oh, bloody hell. So I don't have to throw the traditional martial art out of a self-defence system. So I'll teach the self-defence system, and where there is muscle memory from our traditional pattern, or if you karate man kata moves, I go, look, you do this, make that shape, do that with your legs, make that shape with your hands, move in that direction. Not only does it help that they might have it already pre-programmed in there, and if they've steamed up and down the hall for 4 years doing this over and over, they should be able to do it under crisis. You know, both with adrenaline running and the brain being turned off with fear, and perhaps they've again been down a pub. It should be enough imprinted in there to do it. But it also helps to communicate. Instead of saying, bend your leg like that, stand like that, put your hands over there and do this, I can just say to them, do out stance knife and guarding block, bam, instant communication. And that works for us. But that's kind of a passion. I really like that side of things, and I start getting all excited.
Well, my next question was that you've taught a lot of people, you brought a lot of people to black belt. So my question was, how do you kind of keep motivated in Taekwondo? Like, you've done it for a long time. How do you sort of come into class, you see the same people making the same mistakes year after year, right? Well, I hope not too long. So how do you keep yourself motivated? How do you stop from getting bored?
Well, I'm only human. Sometimes I do get bored. You know, let's tell the truth.
Well, we all do, right?
I mean,
all of us that have trained long enough.
I teach kids classes 6 nights a week, and I get a real buzz and I get really inspired when I see the children really getting it and moving on, particularly as they start approaching black belt and they actually start looking like young adults, and I'll get a buzz and watch them getting awesome and getting there. But the truth of it, I teach kids because I need the money. You know, the professional instructor, I'm doing it 6 nights a week, and sometimes it can be a drag. You get a hot summer's night, they're on the holidays, you walk into a kids class and they're all, and what do I do with you now? Do the best. And even when you could feel boredom, as you're walking through that door, you have to press a button and act, if nothing else, act. But I'm still inspired by my martial art. I'm still inspired by my own training, by my own research and exploration into old traditional martial art, and finding little nuggets that I bring into this self-defense system for Taekwondo people that I'm developing, or for my own students at the very least. That really turns me on. I get turned on by bringing my own students into the sport thing. I never competed much myself, but I seem to have an eye for bringing on competitors. My people do really well. I gained a world champion last weekend. I've had many in the past. That turns me on. I've got an eye for seeing how sparring works. And I also like finding other people's ideas and translating them into then what I can communicate to mine and do our way. I'm still turned on by martial arts, in truth. I've been unwell. Last couple of years I've put on a lot of weight. The last 6 months I've been losing lots of it, getting fit again, and looking back, well, hang on, if I could be fitter at 60 than I was at 45, what can I throw myself into as well next? And it's exciting, you know. There's not, you know, I ride a motorbike, I play the guitar, I've got cats and children. Nothing else other than the martial art really interests me. You know.
Yeah, that's all you need.
You know.
Can't fit any more in.
I enjoy a couple of beers occasionally too. But, yeah.
Brilliant. So, just final question: can you give all the people watching the details on your clubs? So, if people want to train with you, where can they do that? What times?
Okay. Well, the best thing to do is to check out my website, which is www.tkdbristol.com. My contact details are on there. You can phone me anytime, you can email me. I give the first month free. I believe we're as approachable as any martial arts club you'll ever meet anywhere. You can walk in through the door, you're not going to be hit by attitude. I give the first month free. Training's based on coming 2 nights a week. There's no 1 night a week option. It's 2 nights a week. You pay your monthly subs, you can actually train 6 nights a week. Many people that were in here with us tonight are 3 nights a weekers. I'm 2 nights a week here in the Southville Centre, which is on the edge of Bedminster. I'm 2 nights a week in the Hengrove Sports Centre, which is between Whitchurch and the Hengrove Roundabout. And I'm 2 nights a week in the Bradley Stoke Leisure Centre. Kids and adults, young and old, I take more of a buzz taking ordinary people. That's not fit, young, athletic people, but just ordinary people that walk in out through the door and turn them into extraordinary martial artists, other than just Mr. Young and Fit, who's really easy to teach.
Yeah.
Ordinary people is the way to go, and you know, suits me.
Yeah, brilliant.
But I wouldn't call that lot in there tonight ordinary.
Thank you very much.
Nice to meet you, Doug.
Thanks for meeting. Cheers.